Today, I want to share an interesting analogy with you about how programmers write apps. Now, I used this analogy a long time ago to explain something to somebody, but recently when I made a video about supply chain vulnerability, someone asked for a little bit of clarification about how the whole thing works. And I used the same analogy again, so today, let me share that with you if you're into understanding how programmers write apps. So a long time ago, I had a conversation with somebody about how programmers write apps. And what I told them is programmers don't write every line of code in their application. Programmers purchase other toolkits or pieces of code and integrate into their own app. And the person was like, well, that's like kind of like cheating, you know, you just take other people's work and kind of slap it together and build a thing out of it. And it kind of is, yeah, that's kind of how it works. But that's not very different from how other people do things, whatever they're doing. And the way I explain it and how it makes sense to me is think of like building a house. If you were to build a house, you're not going to create all the components that are needed to build a house. You're going to go to a supply store where they sell construction material, and you're going to buy pre-made components and then use them to assemble together to put them into a house. That's kind of how the programmers do it. Instead of writing every line of code, they go and find already pre-made components that they can use to build their application. And so if we further think about house analogy, let's say you need boards to build studs, right? To build walls. You're not going to plant trees and grow them and then cut them into boards, right? That'd be crazy to think like that. You would actually go to a supplier where the trees have already been grown, milled, dried, and prepared for you. Same thing with metal parts. You're not going to mine things out of the ground and melt steel and stuff like that. You're just gonna go and buy screws and things like that. So why is it so different for a developer to also find certain pieces that are partially complete that they could use and build their application? But this is where that supply chain vulnerability comes from, is when you're buying all these components or you're getting them from somewhere, you have to trust the source. You have to trust that whatever you're buying is actually good. So in the video about security, I explained, well, some of the code was purchased by another company and some malicious code was injected into it and developers kept using it. A house analogy would be, imagine you buy wooden boards that already have termites in them, right? And the termite company put them in there just so that they can be ready to start exterminating whenever you finish building your house. So there you go. Hopefully that kind of explains to you how programming and building a house are similar. Now, of course, in the real world, things are very complicated and programmers do write a lot of code, but there are certain things they purchase and use because it's just more efficient as far as resources. Anyway, thank you for checking out this video. Don't forget to follow on LinkedIn, subscribe on YouTube, and I will see you on another.